The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is live once again with you as always. Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. A lot of ground to cover here on a Friday. Remember, if you catch us via the podcast, we are live Tuesday nights at 9:30, Fridays at 10 a.m. Although with the holidays coming around, it's going to be juggled up. So make sure you're following us on Twitter, people. Come on, act like an adult, would you, for 5 seconds? Patrick Mahomes, is it the right decision to play him? Certainly looks like they're going to. Do the Chiefs need to adjust their offense to protect Mahomes? Can Joe Thuney and the offensive line handle the edge rushers of the Houston Texans? Hollywood Brown sounds like he's going to play. What will that mean for the Kansas City Chiefs? Will the defensive line of the Chiefs be able to take care of a shaky interior offensive line of the Texans? What problems do the Houston offense present? C.J. Stroud, how does he measure up to Patrick Mahomes? Is this going to be one of the big guys that, challenges Patrick Mahomes for the best in the business at the quarterback spot? Is it a must-win for the Chiefs to get the number one seed? Of course, we'll give you our keys to the game. Also, our predictions for this game. It's coming up right now here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it. Get with Dave and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Let's dive right into it, guys. Busy morning here as the Chiefs are going to turn around and play tomorrow. It's a Saturday game, shorter week coming with the Chiefs playing on Wednesday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jeff, looks like Patrick Mahomes is going to play. Andy Reid all but said he's going to play. The question is, should he be playing? Is this the right decision for the Chiefs?
Well, look, only they know what they've seen and what they trust. He's still going to be hurt. Even though he's going to be playing, there's still going to be some limitations on him physically. But if they feel like this is what they have to do to win this game and put themselves in a better position to get the bye, I'm okay with it. I think it was a much tougher decision back when you watched him limp off the field and you didn't know where he stood. Like Sam has mentioned before, their practices aren't that intense this time of year, so I don't know exactly how much you can see from him moving around. It's going to be a tough game against a tough defense, but look, you can't win 3 games in one game, but I feel like they feel like their best chance to get the bye is winning this game and getting a chance to win one more down the road.
I think that's a good way to put it. You can't win 3 games in one game, but Sam, can you lose a playoffs in one game? Right? Can you if you're risking him? Is this that's the fear, right? Is that he gets hurt and he can't play for the games that are ultimately really going to matter. They do what makes this a little more complicated. They're not fighting for a playoff spot. They've got that. They're not fighting for a division title. They've got that. They're literally just fighting for home field advantage throughout and that number one seed and getting a bye week, which is a lot, right? Is this the right move?
Yeah, man, I also think it's their only path to the Super Bowl this year is getting that number one seed, not having to play in the first round. If you do have to play Buffalo, you play them at home. You potentially only have to play Buffalo or Baltimore, not both. And like I said last week, I mean, all the upsets favor you as the number one seed as well. And so because of that, yes, I do think it's the right move to play him. Added to the fact that if you rest him, you only get the benefit of 4 days, not a full week. Like you can't say, hey, let's get him a full another 7 days here to rest his ankle. It's just 4. And so I think, we could be having the same conversation ahead of the next game to say, hey, should they play him? Because I don't think you can get healthy doing what he's doing until you get the bye. Like, you are gambling that the bye is going to offer you the break that Patrick Mahomes needs before the playoffs. But also, if you win your next 2, it's a double bye, right? I mean, you could potentially rest the guys against Denver and the full team with the playoff bye week. So Patrick Mahomes said that when I asked him about the calculus of it. He immediately brought up the fact that, well, hey, you could get the rest when the bye comes. And to me, that's the way I would look at it, because I don't think this injury is nearly as serious as past Patrick Mahomes injuries that we've talked about.
Let's take a second to address the elephant in the room that a number of people have here in the chat room as well. Sam has changed his wallpaper. I thought that's good. Like to see that one. Sam got a better backdrop finally, Tyler says. And then, of course, Matt, the cherry on the top. It's nice to know Sam has a square bedroom dedicated to his employer. Do you have like McClatchy bedspreads too that go on the beds? How does that work, Sam?
It's these people are going to be disappointed when I'm back to the old one. The next time we convene. This is a one-time deal. Maybe I should steal this though and bring it home with me.
Can you show us the Jason Whitlock and Sam Ellinger bobblehead collection you have?
I don't have that either.
In front of you.
When is the McDowell bobblehead released? It seems like that's long overdue.
If we want to make some money, it's long overdue. Yeah.
I love it. All right, so he's going to play. We all agree, right, Jeff? But what do they need to change as far as having him play? Do they just go out there and say, look, he's good enough? I don't think anybody feels like he's 100%. He said throughout the course of the week it's not as bad as it was against the Jaguars a couple of years ago, so we expect him to have better movement skills than he had, again, going into the AFC Championship game where he was quite hobbled and finishing that game against the Jaguars. But do they need to adjust what it is they're doing offensively because of the injury?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I don't want to say Patrick Mahomes is telling a lie here, but I don't know if you can trust him when it comes to his own medical advice. I think he's always going to say it's better than what it feels, and I can do more than you probably think I can, because that's how he's wired. But yeah, I think if they go out there trying to play in a similar fashion they've been playing, that's going to be a disastrous thing against. This is a really good pass rush. This team is one of the best. I think they're second in the league in sacks. First now, I forget where they're at with Denver. But they've got 2 speed rushers. They've got 2 guys like Kayvon Chason, who was a nobody who went off on them a couple weeks ago for the Raiders. And so I think you don't want to put him in harm's way. I think you want to have a more conservative game plan. You probably want to run the football more, quicker passes. It's, we can say he's not as bad as he was against Jacksonville, but the line is better. Was better when he was playing against Jacksonville in that playoff game. And so I think we underestimate how much of his mobility has been a key factor in him not taking more hits. So I would lean more towards a more conservative offense, and one that you're trying to make sure he's safe out there, not just trying to hit big plays whenever you can.
Well, that's what we think should happen. Will it happen, Sam? Are we going to see an adjustment in how they play offense?
Well, I think if that needs to be the game plan, then he shouldn't be playing. Like, I think if you go into this game plan thinking you've got to call plays that just protect the quarterback, then your quarterback's in trouble and he shouldn't be playing. The biggest concern for me is that being conservative is their best game plan, not because of where the quarterback is, but just because of where their offense is. I mean, they tried to be aggressive last week. In 2 different categories, they were as aggressive as they had been all year, which was he threw more tight window passes than he has in any game this year, and he threw a higher percentage of passes downfield than he has all year, and that didn't work. So they used to have, at the start, the first, 2/3 of the way through this season, the conservative game plan worked for him because their running game was really successful. To me, they've got to get their running game back. And this game and the next game are really going to highlight the importance of that because of what Jeff mentioned. They're getting ready to play actually 3 consecutive teams that get after the passer really well. And so, you've got to be able to offset their ability to just tee off on the edges by having a successful running game, and that's been absent the past couple of weeks for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I will disagree with if you've got to adjust it, you shouldn't be playing him unless you're saying that he should only go at 100%, right? Like, don't you
not adjust to the significance of you can only hand the ball off, that he can't move around in the pocket. If it's to that degree, then he shouldn't be playing.
And I think that's been covered by Andy Reid. He said he's got to be able to protect himself. He's got to be able to get out of the way, right? Like, if he's going to play, we assume that box is checked, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that point's out of there. But like, okay, maybe the question isn't. Maybe the question should be: does this inspire them to do what they should have been doing all along? Right? Does this get them towards the offense that they need to have, Jeff?
Well, I was going to make that point. One of the blessings or the possibilities that came out of Carson Wentz playing in this game, if he had played, was I think Andy Reid would have called a game more towards what his offense is. I think we'd have worked more within the constraints of what Carson Wentz can do as a quarterback and what is also around him at receiver, running back, and offensive line. I think with Patrick in there, I think he's always going to be a little more prone to pushing the envelope, trying to do a little bit more to see the fourth down play where he got hurt in that situation. And that's really to me, always the rubber meeting the road type situation for this quarterback and this coach, because the quarterback's going to be aggressive when he's out there. He's going to push the envelope, and the coach is going to put him in situations where he can do that. And so when you get in those places, that's when bad things can happen. So I'm hoping that maybe Andy and Matt Nagy can be a little bit more mindful of that when they're calling plays with him.
I was eager actually to see the potential of what the offense would look like without, like, I want Patrick Mahomes to play. I want everyone to be healthy on whatever team they're playing on. But I was eager to see, if he didn't play, what the game plan would be, because you go back to when Patrick Mahomes missed back-to-back games in 2019. If you go back and look at those game plans, they ran like play action at double the rate they did at any other game, because they decided this quarterback can't do everything in the playbook. You're going to have to be very specific on trying to trick the defense and do some other things. I think you can do that if you have the quarterback. And so I was kind of eager to see how the game plan would change if they had to play somebody different. Again, I want Patrick Mahomes to play, but just if he didn't, how much did they change? And would that be some stuff they could use when they have the good quarterback?
I think it's things that we've been asking for, like you said, when he was healthy, that would help delay the pass rush. I mean, I think there's just kind of a greediness to they want to get everybody out into the pattern all the time. And they need to accept some shortcomings, and maybe at times, it forces them to play to their strengths. And I think that there is a possibility that we see this offense come out and run more efficiently, and it's not just his mobility. It's that, like, this is a bad matchup, their O-line versus the Texans D-line, right? The edge rushers.
Even if he was healthy, yes.
Yeah, even if he was healthy, which is, I mean, that's something we're definitely going to get into. But I mean, it's not the best combination there. So it's something that they should have been thinking about. But now, if he's got any kind of decreased mobility, maybe it's something that it forces them to think about. And maybe we get the style of play that is best for them overall in trying to win a game. Forget about what's best for his health. It could serve both masters for the wrong, one for the right reason, one for the wrong reason. We will tell you right now that we're always brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete and David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized, full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Jeff, let's pick up where we left off, and that is the edge rushers of the Houston Texans. What do you think? They've got two guys in double digits. They got a couple more guys with 3 or 4 each. I mean, they've got not just quality at the top, they've got depth of edge rushers. So even if they cycle off an Anderson, cycle off a Daniil Hunter, they've got guys that have had some success getting after the quarterback. Where's the level of concern with the Chiefs offensive line. Probably Joe Thuney, we're assuming, I think, at left tackle, trying to handle these very talented edge rushers of the Texans.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't following the press conferences that closely. Did Andy confirm that Thuney's starting, or was he kind of threw out Wanya Morris, right?
That everybody
took people out.
They worked everybody out there.
Yeah. They worked everybody out there, both the young guys, so which would lead you to believe that somehow in a non-contact week of practice, one of the young guys would actually have passed Joe Thuney, the guy they went with against Myles Garrett. I mean, I think you'd have to be a colossal boob to come to that conclusion.
So I agree with you, Soren, but I don't think they would go through this line of thinking. But Jeff brought up a really interesting point on Tuesday that this is a different match. Even though these are good edge rushers, they're different types of edge rushers than Myles Garrett was.
But don't we think the style is like if there was a guy you thought he wasn't going to handle, Joe Thuney wasn't going to handle, it'd be Myles Garrett blowing him up, which he did a couple of times. This would be more the type of guy you would think he would have a better shot at, or am I wrong?
No, I think Myles Garrett. It sounds crazy to say is a better matchup for Joe Thuney, but Joe Thuney's used to working with guys inside who have size. Like Myles Garrett is a mammoth dude. Whereas a speed guy, he's not going to see that kind of speed coming at him, and the having to force you to move your body and not having the long arms, the things that are going to help you. So I think this is a way tougher matchup and Jawan Taylor for that matter. I think that, and it's compounded by the fact that the Texans have really good corners, and Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter, guys who can really man up and get in guys' faces and play sticky coverage. You got to remember, man, this team played Josh Allen. He went 9 for 30 for 130 yards. They played Jared Goff, and he had 5 picks. They played the Dolphins last week, and Tyreek Hill had 2 catches. I mean, and Tua was hit a lot. I mean, I think that it's going to be a really tough matchup. And so that's what I'm saying. The run game, play action, all this stuff, whatever you can do, the screen game, whatever you can do to keep these guys off balance, you're going to have to do because they are going to be putting their ears back and coming.
You see it the same way, Sam, that this is a tougher matchup? I mean, obviously, they're a better team. That goes without saying. But we're talking specifically with some of the matchup on matchups that are going to be here.
Yeah, I mean, look, the hardest adjustment for Joe Thuney is he's got to play in space that usually he does not play in. And that's what the points Jeff's making is like, this is a team that takes more advantage of that space than the Browns did. The Browns last week were a really tough matchup for a makeshift offensive line. They lead the league in pressure rate, but the Texans are second. To me, the Texans have built this defense that Steve Spagnuolo idolizes, which is they create a lot of pressure up front. They play tough man coverage on the outside, and both things complement the other. And so if your offensive line's failing you, there's not going to be quick stuff open. Like, you've got to protect. And this is the second hardest matchup in the league to protect because their pressure rate is 38% this year. I can't figure out a way in which we're talking about this game afterwards saying, hey, the Chiefs offensive line had a great day, because there's not many teams that play the Texans and their offensive line walks away saying, hey, we had a great day. And so why you would think that the Chiefs would have one, it's without a doubt the most difficult matchup that the Chiefs have going into this game.
Matt points out they also lost to the Titans and Jets. Right, so it's the Texans have had their.
That's not the defensive line.
It's not the defense's fault. Yeah, no, we'll get to the Texans' offense, and then we'll find out why they lost those games.
And there is issues, but I just want to point it out that if we're and we agree, we're not saying that this Texans team is unbeatable. We're just pointing out that they have made some really good quarterbacks look bad. But Matt brings up a fair point, and I think What does Wanya King or actually I didn't want to get this, but I think it's funny. Tyler said, "Who does Wanya Kingsley have a good matchup against?" But I thought this one, how does it keeps bouncing on me. Sorry, there's one that keeps sliding up. Too many comments from everybody, making it hard for me to keep up. Anyway, there was one in here about what is a healthy Wanya Morris. Here it is. Is a healthier Morris a better option than Thuney if they help out? If they help out Morris like they helped out Thuney, right? Like that's one of the things we talked about, Sam, about, we saw a lot of help there for Joe Thuney against Myles Garrett, but Wanya Morris was battling a deep bone bruise. Like, is it possible that, because we just said, well, how do you possibly pass it up? Well, if Wanya Morris was affected, if his movement was affected, is that the scenario? Perhaps he's healthy and that makes him the better option here.
I don't think Wanya Morris wasn't playing because of health last week. Like, they just determined that was their better option. I think Joe Thuney is playing better at left tackle because his his mentality is, I just got to fight through it. And I think Wanya Morris's mentality is, do I belong in this league at all? And so I think this is a mental reasoning that they're positioning the offensive line the way it is. I said this on Tuesday, but the biggest concern for me is what it subtracts from your interior offensive line. And that's what, like, they have Joe Thuney on their line. They don't have left guard Joe Thuney, and that's a major difference.
Yeah. Matt is not giving it up, Jeff. Titans scored 32. Was none of that on the D line, right? Like, yeah, I'm looking to see if there were a bunch
Go back and sick of what Will Levis going crazy against them.
They've only allowed more than 5.6 yards per play once the entire season.
Was it the Titans?
Yeah, and you know, and
no,
I love
it was
Matt.
against it was against the Colts in Week 1.
Yeah, and I love Matt. Matt, go ahead, Sam.
Well, I was just gonna say that the Titans was their second worst this year, but I mean, God, you look at their numbers on a per play basis, and the Texans defense had a lot of success this year.
Yeah, and Matt's a great regular. And the point that I'm making, and I understand what he's saying, is that it's okay to talk about team strengths and not feel like you're saying the Chiefs suck or they can't be beat. Nobody's saying that the Texans are unbeatable here. It's just that, and in fact, we'll get into why they lost those games, but it's like saying the Chiefs offense sucks. Well, they lost Rashee Rice, they lost Hollywood Brown, they lost all these guys, the left tackle. There's things that play into this that go beyond just, is a team good or bad?
Sure. And the question is, are you going to, if they had a bad day against the Titans, I don't think they're going to, if they looked past the Titans, of which I'm the only one here that believes in that, but it seems to fit a narrative here. If they looked past the Titans in that game, they ain't looking past the Chiefs. So the likelihood that's going to be the scenario in this one. They do, it looks like, Sam, get back Hollywood Brown for this one. Andy Reid, Todd Lebo asked, that sounds like he's going to play. And he said, I think it's likely, or he's probably going to, something to that effect. He pretty much confirmed that Hollywood Brown would play. You have been giddy about what Hollywood Brown was going to bring this team before he got hurt. What does he bring it now?
Well, I'm not quite as giddy when he's missed the first 15 weeks of the season. But like, my view of Hollywood Brown is, even if I don't think he's going to be the guy that he looked like he was going to be in training camp, since he's making his season debut in week 16, like, I put it in the perspective of whose snaps could he be getting? And Justin Watson, there's 123 wide receivers in the NFL that have at least 20 targets this year, 123. In terms of yards per route run, Justin Watson is 118th out of 123. Juju Smith-Schuster is 94th out of 123. Those two guys have combined for over 500 wide receiver snaps this year. To give people perspective of this, Justin Watson's yards per route run is 0.6. Rashee Rice was at 3.2. Like, that's the gap between really good wide receivers. And like I'll get on board with this whole Justin Watson gets other guys open and everything. But you know what really gets other guys open? When you're a threat to catch the ball. When you can actually make a play yourself, and that attracts the attention. And I do think Hollywood Brown is better, even if he's making his week debut or season debut in week 16. I still think he's better than what they've been putting on the field already. So I still think this could be a big deal for the Chiefs offense.
Legs weren't hurt, should be able to run, Jeff, right? The problem was up around the collarbone shoulder area. And what you're going to worry about is if he comes crashing down from jumping up and catch a ball, or if he takes a big hit over the middle. But the legs should be great, right? He should have fresh, healthy legs. So that part is good news for the Chiefs. But again, you got to be able to take hits in this game. What do you expect? What should we see at least early on, and maybe later on, as he hopefully stays healthy and knocks the rust off?
I had this argument on the morning show, 8:10, with Jake Gutierrez, and I said, I don't see a big impact. I don't see much of an impact coming with Hollywood Brown, for partly for the reason Sam just mentioned, that he hasn't played at all. But before that, he wasn't a great player.
Impact in this game, or impact
overall in this game? Yeah, in this game and overall. I mean, in this game, they're playing against a team that has really good cover corners, and pretty much, I'm honest, when you look down the road, like, where is he going to have this great moment to really exploit a really bad secondary? Maybe if he sees the Ravens, who haven't played well, but they got guys who can cover. I mean, it's not, and they know it. So I don't see this great window for him to come in and just set the world on fire. We talk about this guy like he's Randy Moss. You look at his numbers.
I think that's a straw man argument. I don't think anybody here thinks he's going to be Randy Moss. But
I'm saying some people do, not us here, but I think people in general think he's going to come in here and set the world on fire. I think he's going to replace somebody else's production, like a Justin Watson or a Xavier Worthy. He'll catch 3 or 4 balls for like 40, 45 yards.
That'd be great. That'd be great for this offense.
That would be more than replacing.
But that's what I'm saying. That's taking what Xavier Worthy's doing. Then what's the difference?
Well, I don't think it does take Xavier Worthy. I think it takes the other guys you mentioned, like Justin Watson.
I don't see. Well, secondly, I don't see where this offense, the way it's blocking for Patrick Mahomes, the things this guy's going to do down the field, or where he's going to make a difference. The sales job of him being an intermediate short threat is BS.
I think there are multiple reasons to be negative about this, right? And of course, Jeff, you have found them. No, I'm just kidding. But there are real reasons if you're going to truthfully analyze it. One is the fact that the Chiefs have brought in a lot of guys, and most of them haven't really worked. Okay, so let's be clear about it. We've yet to see this guy work. We were all hearing good things, but we've yet to see about, we heard good things about Kingsley Suamataia by some folks in the media too, right? That ended up being, a complete mess. So, just because they get a guy doesn't mean it's going to work. And I also think that you hit on it, that it's the protection. Like, can they protect enough to get the most out of him? A lot of people will tell you that Xavier Worthy's open and not getting the football. A lot of people tell you it's either because Patrick Mahomes is missing him, but also because he doesn't have the time to get it there. But I do, the little bit we saw in camp, I saw more drag, more underneath stuff. Like, I didn't really see. What did you see? I mean, try to remember back to camp, Sam. Was he in the stretch the field guy, or was he more working? Like, I think, he's not as big and physical as Juju Smith-Schuster, but he was working a little bit more intermediate stuff by my eye, that maybe there is more time for them to get that ball out to.
Yeah, I mean, he was. I mean, look at the play he got hurt on, the first snap of preseason that they went to him. It's like a 11-yard curl. It's like a hook route. Like, he was doing a lot of that stuff. I mean, he had a terrific training camp. Rashee Rice was still their best wide receiver in training camp, but it was clearly Hollywood Brown was second. And that's my point here, is that I don't think that I predicted before the season, I thought Hollywood Brown would have 1,000 yards. It's about 60 a game. I don't think he's going to have 60 a game when his season debut is 3 weeks before the regular season closes. Like, I don't think they can expect to have that guy. I do think they can expect to top what they're currently getting, the players that he will be replacing, which is why, even if this isn't a complete difference maker for their offense, I do think it can make a difference. It can be better. And it should be better than what they're getting. That's why I pointed out Justin Watson's 118th out of 123 players in yards per route. Like, there is a lot to be gained out of that spot for a guy that's played 350 pass snaps this season.
All I'm saying is I don't see where the third or fourth receiver is the most pressing issue for this team. And to be honest, I know this is going to upset people. Aside from Rashee Rice, how many receivers have shown up in his offense that Patrick Mahomes has made better?
And I think that's fair there. But how many guys have they gotten that would theoretically be in their prime? The closest would be Juju Smith-Schuster, who was 26 years old, and Juju had a very good year. But he missed a couple of games, and he was knocking on the door of 1,000 yards. But
he was the same player he was in Pittsburgh, right? He was a good player in Pittsburgh.
I think, but you don't think the same player that Hollywood Brown was with the Arizona Cardinals and Baltimore Ravens improves this team? I think that's Sam's point about Justin Watson and Juju. I don't think Juju's what he was 2 years ago. I think and I think, it's not going to be Xavier Worthy snaps. It's going to be Justin Watson and Juju Smith-Schuster snaps that come away. And if you're getting average Hollywood Brown over those two guys, what they are right now, I think you've improved the team. Your point, there is no arguing the inefficiencies on the offensive line right now. That's inarguable. They have to figure something out about that. We can see what we talked about, bootlegs, play actions. They've got to figure something out of that. That's a whole different story. But whenever they can get the ball out, they're better if they have average Hollywood Brown out there over Watson, Juju, et cetera.
Yeah, I would say this. A better way to say this, being more positive about it, I'd be higher on Hollywood Brown if Rashee Rice was playing. I think he can play off people.
Absolutely.
I think with DeAndre, with Travis, there's certainly a priority to get those guys the football. And it sucks to say it about the guy. I'm trying to beat up on the guy. If he was a better player, he would have got a bigger contract in the offseason. I think the league told you how they feel about this guy's a player.
I think if he was a healthier player, I think they also, showed you how durable they think he is, and that reared its head immediately with the Chiefs. What you hope we said this at the time. We were both Sam and I were bullish on the 1,000 yards, but we said, look, he's got to stay healthy. The health concerns are legit. And you said he's not going to get to 1,000 because he's not going to stay healthy. And you were 100% correct, and everybody can eat it if they don't like that. And they didn't like it at the time. They didn't like hearing reality from Jeff, but it was reality. He has not stayed healthy. The hope is that he's now had that injury. It's out of the way, and he can stay healthy here moving forward, because we said at that time, the key is going to be for him to be healthy when they really need him, because they can win some games without him. Now the question is, can they get him healthy? I think that's the real question here for Hollywood Brown. Let's take a quick break. We're always brought to you by our friends at Besame Wellness and Northland Injury Law. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Besame Wellness for all your cannabis needs. With fast, easy, and discreet delivery, you can enjoy the same deals you enjoy in-store, but delivered to your home or office. Even same day. Restrictions may apply. Any questions? Let Besame's top-rated customer service team assist you. And this Chief season, don't miss a minute of the game with no delivery fees on game days. And when the home team wins, so do you. Use promo code 3PEAT and receive some extra free goodies with your next Besame order. Don't forget, you can still use promo code podcast25 to save 25% on your entire order for online delivery or at any of their 5 area Besame locations.
All right, let's get to the positive side of the thing, right? Like, that is on the defensive side. Can the Chiefs' defensive line, Jeff, exploit what is a very, very shaky interior offensive line? I think it's second most sacks that C.J. Stroud has given up in the NFL this year. Part of that is always by if a quarterback plays, right, and continues to play. Teams like the Raiders that flip guys out all the time, it's, that stat gets hung by next to quarterbacks. But he's been hit a lot. The interior of their offensive line is a problem. That's where Chris Jones does his best work. Charles Omenihu can work well from in there. That's the flip side of this coin, right? The Chiefs have questions protecting against the edge, but the Texans have real questions protecting against the interior of the Chiefs line. How's this one go?
Yeah, I mean, this is the matchup the Chiefs have been dying to see, and Chris Jones especially. I mean, it'd be surprising if he didn't have a big game. I know they'll have a plan for him, but they've benched a guy already in Kenyon Green, and they've moved some people around. It's surprising because the Texans spent a lot of money on this offensive line, or invested a lot in this offensive line force, and so it's really been the biggest reason why they haven't been overwhelming, aside from some injuries at receiver. So yeah, I think that there should be a lot of opportunities to make hay against this bunch. In a lot of ways, these teams, and again, this is probably not popular because of the records, but these teams are very similar right now. They have offensive line problems. Quarterbacks have been getting hit a lot. They've had injuries at receiver. They're relying a lot on the defensive front to make a difference. There's a lot of things that make these teams very similar.
Yeah. Sam, what do you think? First of all, from Chris Jones' standpoint, I mean, he needs to have a day. I'm not going to hang it next to sacks, because he can be very disruptive without getting sacks. He did some of that last week, but I'd really be hard pressed to see the day go the way the Chiefs want it to go, and Chris Jones not get sacks. And maybe plural.
100%. I mean, I agree with what you first said. To me, it's more about the pressures and being constantly disruptive, because C.J. Stroud likes to scramble within the pocket more than he likes to scramble, for rushing plays. But he takes a lot of sacks. Like, I think when I agree with Jeff on some of the similarities with these offenses, but there's one key difference. Like, they both have terrible offensive lines. The Chiefs have made it somewhat functionable. Like, we criticize this Chiefs offense in a lot of very valid ways. They're still better than half the league is. The Texans are not. They're 31st in yards per drive this year. Like, their offensive line has made their whole offense look putrid this year, rushing the ball, passing the ball. And a lot of it's because C.J. Stroud is still adjusting to, how do I play behind a really bad offensive line? And this is going to sound like a compliment. It's not something you actually want for your quarterback. Patrick Mahomes has had a lot of experience playing behind lines that have struggled to protect him. And it shows the difference between a quarterback that is accustomed to having to make something happen versus a quarterback that's still adjusting to try and have to do that.
Overall, the Texans defense is 4th in total defense, right? They are 9th in points allowed, 10th against the run, 6th against the pass. That's what they throw out there, right? They look really impressive on the defensive side of the ball. Can the Chiefs, that's what we're worried about, the Kansas City Chiefs offense going up against. Can the Chiefs be that good against this Texas offense? Because, I mean, that's a solid, all-around defense that they have. Can this defense of the Chiefs match that if this ends up being a field goal or a punt fest back and forth, or a field goal fest?
Well, it's going to be an ugly game. I think it's you see the way it's trending when you have offensive line issues on both sides, and you have teams that want to be more explosive and do more things in the pass game. That's not a great recipe for a shootout. But yeah, I mean, I think that, look, the Chiefs defensively against their offense, to me, the question is how much of a factor is Nico Collins in this game? Because the people who want to kill CJ Stroud, along with having a bad offensive line, he didn't have Nico Collins for 5 games, and he lost Stephon Diggs for the season. So I think another guy's got an injury too. I think Mechie's banged up. And so you take away your best receivers, as Patrick Mahomes has dealt with, you're going to have issues moving the football. Now, I think Nico Collins can take advantage of them in the secondary if they get time. And Joe Mixon, for that matter, is an X factor as well. If they're able to run the football effectively, and he's had big games against the Chiefs with the Bengals, that could be a factor as well. But I certainly think that the interior of the offensive line, defensive line for this game is going to be won.
Who has the better defense, Jeff? This was a fun topic when we.
Yeah, I think right now, I think the Texans have the better defense because they're better in coverage. I think Derek Stingley is one of the best young corners in the game.
I did not agree with him on the Bills thing. I agree with him on this. I do think that I would prefer, just because, and I think Steve Spagnuolo would prefer the way that the Texans defense operates because of what I said earlier. He loves to create pressure, and I'll figure out the back end if my front four are creating pressure on their own. I agree with Jeff. This is going to be an ugly football game. I can't figure out exactly how either team is going to have a lot of offensive success. What game plan should the Texans have? They have the 2nd worst rushing success percentage in the NFL this year. We've talked about their passing issues. Nico Collins sounds like a great matchup, but it brings up the same question that Jeff often brings up about the Chiefs, which is, are they going to have time to even try and get shots downfield? Yeah. And that's the biggest difference in the Texans offense last year versus the Texans offense this year. And a lot of it is time, is they don't throw the ball downfield anymore. Remember last year, CJ Stroud led the league in his depth of target. He was 32 out of 57 on downfield shots last year with 8 touchdowns and no interceptions. That was a 141 passer rating that led the league on throws beyond 20 yards. This year, that passer rating on those particular plays is 70. It's half of what it was a year ago. He's only completed 18 all year. We were acutely aware of the way teams transitioned from defending Patrick Mahomes in 2018 versus every year moving forward. And heck, I talked a lot about this in the offseason. I was eager to see, once defenses adjusted to CJ Stroud throwing deep this year, could he adjust back? And so far, for the Texans, the answer is no. They have not solved the way defenses are defending this quarterback.
Yeah, one more thing to add to that, Soren. Chiefs are first in the league in third down offense, third down conversions. They hold the ball longer than anybody else. Texans are 4th in third down defense. And so we're going to know real fast, who's winning that battle.
Strength on strength in that one. Total defense, Texans 4th, Chiefs 5th. Total points, Texans 9th, Chiefs 4th overall. So it's a pretty good matchup of the two defenses. What problems do the offense present, Sam, for this Chiefs defense?
I don't know that there are a lot. I mean, Jeff mentioned Mixon, and I think Mixon is a better running back than what the Texans have, but they're not running the ball with any sort of success this year. And look, Mixon's played against the Chiefs 5 times, and he's scored 1 touchdown in 5 games. He's only once averaged 3.9 a carry, and that was 4.1. He's never been better than 4.1. Only once did he actually have more than 25 yards in the passing game. Like Joe Mixon has been a guy that they've been okay against Joe Mixon. And Jeff's right. I mean, Nico Collins is the guy that with the back end of the Chiefs secondary, particularly their safeties have given up the explosive plays this year. He's the guy that I'm sure Steve Spagnuolo is signaling, like, this is the guy who could really disrupt the game. You could play really good for 2 downs, and he's the guy that could disrupt the game. But that goes back to what you said, Stren. Like, if Chris Jones is wreaking havoc on the offensive line in the best matchup that he's probably had this year, then that becomes a more difficult task for the Texans to take advantage of. And just one more thing, Jeff brought up a great point on 3rd downs. That's where the Texans thrived last year, and they're not doing it this year. C.J. Stroud was terrific on 3rd downs, and I think he led the league in his passer rating on 3rd downs last year. It's just been completely absent this year, and a lot of it is because that's when teams bring extra guys and extra pressure, and he just has not handled that well.
Yeah, you fear Nico Collins, you fear Tank Black, you fear those guys, but it's a race, right? Can the Chiefs defensive line get to Stroud through a porous interior offensive line before he can find his receivers? That's what it comes down to in this matchup, defense Chiefs D against Texans offense, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and look, I think they know that too, right? The Chiefs know they got offensive line issues. So that's why I keep saying it's going to be an ugly game, because I don't think anybody wants to make the big mistake that's going to open the floodgate. They don't want to be in 3rd and 11. They don't want to be here's a strip sack or a tip ball that leads to an interception. I think both these teams are going to be very mindful of this. Feels like a 17-16 game or a 19-17 game with a lot of Butker field goals, and Fairburn is the Houston Texans kicker. I think that feels more like they're going to see a lot of action, a lot of Matariza in this game.
Okay. Getting a little sneak peek for what Jeff Chadiha's prediction will be. We'll get to that. Also, how does C.J. Stroud measure up against Patrick Mahomes? Talk about that next, right after you hear from our friends at David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations: North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. How about it, Jeff? What do you think? C.J. Stroud. Is this going to be one of the guys? Is this going to be one of the great opponents of Patrick Mahomes? Tom Brady was the man, but Peyton Manning was his foil a lot. Ben Roethlisberger was a worthy challenger. Eli Manning from the NFC got him a couple of times. Is C.J. Stroud going to be one of those guys, or is he going to be more like a Matt Flacco, a Phillip Rivers, guys that put a lot of numbers, win some games, but are never really a threat to do much when it comes to championships?
Oh, I think he'll be one of those guys. I think he'll enter into that conversation with Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. He's too talented. You saw what he did in that first year. I think what he's going through this year is exactly what Mahomes is going through on his end of it, and last year what he went through, which is, you start losing key pieces of your supporting cast, or key pieces of that cast don't play up to expectations, and you're going to struggle. You look at their record with Nico Collins on the field, is they're 7-2. They went down for 5 games and they lost some. I think they lost three or four games in that stretch. Now, they were still close losses. They lost the Lions by, I think, 3 or 4, and they lost the Packers by 2, but they didn't have the same juice. You lose Stephon Diggs, you don't have the same juice. I think Joe Mixon was banged up at one point, and then the offensive line has been an issue. So I think those things can get fixed pretty easily when you're talking about a guy on a rookie deal. So I don't think that this is all about C.J. Stroud underwhelming or not living up to expectations. I think it's more about the reality of no matter who you are at quarterback, you can be undone by the people around you.
Well, what's your crystal ball say, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything Jeff just described is life in the NFL for the average quarterback. I mean, I think a lot of things went right for CJ Stroud last year. And to Jeff's point, he's dealt with a lot of things that haven't gone right. And so far, the response has not been great. I don't think a lot of this is on CJ Stroud. I think just like, look, we criticize Mahomes on this podcast, but we also recognize his situation. And we recognize that the offensive line has deprived him of his ability to be his best. That's what CJ Stroud is dealing with now. I mentioned the third down stuff. Like last year, he had this certain Mahomesian quality where he made something from nothing. And I think it's been fascinating the fact that part of his game has not shown up again this year. He's 23rd in the NFL in his EPA on third downs this year. I think he was second last year. And I already mentioned that the deep pass is no longer part of his game because of the way teams are defending him. I still think CJ Stroud figures it out. I think he was so good last year that I don't think it's going to be a one-year thing. But the point is, he has more to figure out than he did as a rookie.
I think he'll figure some things out, but I think it just shows how critical sack avoidance is and how much of a skill that is for the quarterback, right? And
yeah.
And you made a great point. Like, we don't like hearing it, but Patrick Mahomes is really good at playing behind a mediocre to bad offensive line at times, right? Like, that's something he does, and he still makes plays. And I think that's one of the things that CJ Stroud, who we saw, in that game against the Colts to get him into the playoffs last year, then in the playoff game, really make plays with guys hanging all over him. There's no lack of toughness. There's no lack of ability to stand in.
He'll take a hit.
He'll take a hit. That's definitely there, but still maybe working on what are the way, when is it time to check it down, or when is it time to take off, some of those things. And I think that's one of the little hidden things about Joe Burrow too. Joe Burrow takes a lot of sacks. Justin Herbert takes a lot of sacks. And whether, there's some happy feet sometimes for Patrick Mahomes getting out of the pocket, do you leave a little bit early sometimes, but to the great benefit of not taking the extra sacks, most indicators point to yes, right? Like, I think that's one of the real nuances of the game, and we'll see if CJ Stroud can do that. And it's not just running around. It's not just the running for first downs. It's just knowing when to get it out, knowing when this play's done, knowing when to throw it away, knowing when to check it down. And I think that's maybe still a work in progress for CJ Stroud in this one. So, I think it'll be interesting to see. All right, keys to the game, Jeff. What are the keys? Who you picking? What does it take to win, and who you got?
Oh, I think one is turnovers. Whoever can really, create the takeaways in this game can win that battle is going to be huge. Both teams running the football, given their offensive line situations, I think that's a big factor. Pacheco or Joe Mixon, I think there's going to be a lot more conservative play calling in this game. And then finally, Mahomes' health. Like, how mobile is he really going to be out there against this speed rush? And so, look, I know people think I picked the against the Chiefs a lot. I think I picked them probably 90% of the time, but I'm going against them in this one. I think the Texans are better at taking the football away. They're 28th in the league in takeaways. I like their back end a lot better. I like their speed rush, and I don't like Mahomes being banged up in this game. So I'm taking Texans 19-17.
19-17. All right, Sam, keys to the game. Who you got winning it?
I just think this is going to be an ugly game. And I think when we criticize the Chiefs offense, we criticize them because they're inching towards mediocrity. Right now, the Texans are striving to get to mediocrity offensively. So I think that the worst unit in this game is the Texans offense. It's, at least statistically, has been the worst performing unit of any of the major four. They're going to decide this game. So I think it's going to be an ugly game. And the Chiefs have thrived in winning ugly games this year. So I've got the Chiefs at 17-13.
17-13. Okay. All right. That's interesting. I agree. I think all things point to this being a rock fight. That's why I think it won't be. I think that means if one of them gets a play, I think somebody's going to lose by more than they think. And whether it's the Texans, I can see a scenario where Chiefs struggle to protect Patrick Mahomes and they turn the football over. They've done it most of the year, negative turnover differential all year, except for the one big game against Cleveland. So I could see Texans winning it, but they usually don't do that. They usually do find a way to win it. I think Hollywood Brown does help. I think Joe Thuney does help at left tackle. I think they're a better football team for it. I think the defense is finding itself, and I think if the pass rush gets there, we can see that Steve Spagnuolo is pretty good on defense.
Here's the Fury. This is a Fury set.
No Fury. No Fury.
I think he put that away. I think he knows. 1 out of 14 not going to work.
23-13. Give me the Chiefs by 10. But I could see if there's a defensive score, then this, and somebody mentioned that in the comments, that this one could get away a little bit from both these teams. Listen, you can always support us. One, hit that like button. I know Flatlander mentioned that. Always appreciate that. That helps us out a lot. And of course, please support our great sponsors. They help us bring you the Red, Gold, and Bold, like David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Call them at 816-781-7331 for all your insurance needs. You run a business, you own a business. Your parking lot has problems. Not anymore, because you know Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Best of Me Wellness. Use promo code podcast25 to save 25% on your entire order at Best of Me Wellness, and by our friends at Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted KC's #1 accident lawyers. Text HURT to 22-222. That's HURT 22-222. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.